Hey, good day, everyone. Hey, I wanted to bring you into tonight's live and raw webinar. I'm pretty excited about our next guest that we're having on, and I'm super stoked. I met this wonderful lady several weeks ago. We've had some amazing conversations, and I thought it was only great to have her come on and join us for this show. She's going to share with us some really cool stuff. I'd like to introduce you to Deborah Stellingwerff. Now, Deborah is a business and professional leadership coach and a speaker on a mission to debunk the myth that stress equals success. So, what Deborah has done is she's set out to find a better way, and she's calling her journey the Stellar Life Project. So, what Deborah's discovered in that process in her Stellar Life Project is that ease and flow are the only ways to authentic success and happiness. Now, Deborah comes to us. She holds an MA in English and Rhetorical Studies, has 15 years experience as an educator, and has had honed her entrepreneurial skills has honed her entrepreneurial skills as a award-winning realtor for 6 years before becoming a coach in Vancouver. She now partners with high-performing leaders and entrepreneurs to develop the systems, skills, and mindsets needed to create less stress and more success and happiness in all areas of your life. Deborah's always been fascinated with how our minds work, and she wants to bring her experience as an educator together with her training as a positive intelligence coach to help her clients build a mental fitness and to transform their lives from the inside out. Please help me welcome to this interview, Deb Stellingwerff. So I'm really curious though, is what got you into doing what you're doing right now? So tell us a little bit about yourself, I guess.
Right. So, well, I mean, that we do similar work in the world. We take different angles at it, but as a business and personal leadership coach, you know, okay, the short version of the story is that sometimes life happens in a way that you don't expect, right? I thought I was going to be a teacher forever. I loved what I was doing. Fascinated by how the brain works. I love language and literature and words. And then I was in a minor car accident that meant I had to do a career pivot. And I did something that I don't recommend people do. I just somebody said, hey, you'd be good at that. I'm like, okay. And I went and tried it without even asking myself, hey, how does this feel for me? Is this something does it suit my lifestyle desires and all of this? And, and I mean, that's a little bit how I've always done things. So I'm like, someone said to me once, you're going to do this, you should move to Italy. And so I did, and I think that's a good quality. But I ended up in real estate, and I did, it was true. I was awesome at real estate. I did really, really well at real estate. The thing was, so it wasn't my zone of genius. It wasn't my passion, right? So I love working with people. I love educating them. I love making that massive difference. And while there are a ton of realtors out there who just get lit up with helping people with, they're finding their homes, and it's such an important job. I'm not discounting that at all. It just felt like it wasn't allowing me to really, really bring my full gifts and talents to the world and make the impact in people's lives that I wanted to make, because it's such a transactional relationship.
Was it fulfilling for you, or was it just that you felt like there was something missing?
Well, parts of it were fulfilling when I was working with people and helping them to, deal with their fears and anxieties and, about making a decision. And that stuff was kind of fulfilling. But that's the spotlight moment for realtors. There's a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff that was just really killing me. I don't love filling out forms. And I knew that going in. I'm like, I hate forms. And there's a lot of forms to do. So yeah, it wasn't really inspiring me enough to keep going. And I said to you before when we first talked, I'm a reluctant coach. I was like, I am not going to become a coach. Right. I had we all have these ideas about what it means to be coaching. And the funny thing is that, it shows us how our brains work. Like on the one hand, I had a great coach in the real estate space who I really attribute much of my success to enrolling in coaching very early on in my career. And so I knew coaching worked. And yet over here in this other part of my brain, I was like, no, only weird people become coaches. And, because yes, I was very judgmental, right? And so it took a while to get me there to that place where, people, and it happened again. And this has happened several times in my life when somebody else has said, hey, you might be really good at that. You should think about it. And it happened again with coaching. And now I have no regrets about real estate because, in fact, I could not have come from where I was as an educator and gone straight into business coaching. But because I ran a successful business and I'm a learning junkie. So when I got into business, it's like, okay, well, that's what I'm going to learn. And I was reading everything and and going to conferences and learning everything. And because I am an educator at heart, I found that I wanted to teach what I'd learned.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of naturally went into coaching. And when somebody's, you should probably do that. I'm like, no, not doing it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll do it. And then the next thing I knew, it was like, yeah, I think I need to do this. This is actually what I'm supposed to be doing here. I think I told you, right? My first day of coach training, I was like, oh, this is why I'm on the planet. Right.
Right.
And the difference for me now is that, and you know this, right? The work we do is transformational.
Sure it is. Absolutely.
We change people's lives. And I love changing people's lives from the inside out. Like, it's amazing for me when I can ask a simple question and then watch the connection happen in someone's brain
Yeah.
that actually results in it changes their whole life because their worldview has just shifted and they now see something they didn't see before. And so much possibility comes out of that. I love the word possibility. I get goosebumps and I puff up when I just say possibility. So that's what I loved about teaching, is that I was helping people, my students, to experience possibility.
Yeah.
And that's what I missed with the mundane parts of real estate, of the day-to-day, like paperwork and all that kind of stuff. I missed that I was, working with possibility. So yeah, so that's the short version of the story.
Nice. Well, there's a couple of things that you said in there that I want to go back and unpack. And one of
Mm,
them that struck out for me was this zone of genius. I want you to
mm,
explain to me
yeah.
how you come up with that term and how it can apply to helping somebody figure out what their zone of genius is.
Mhm. Well, I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. I can't remember the guy. You probably remember it. I'm just having a blip right now. I think it's not Jim Rohn, one of those guys who talks about the sweet spot. Jim Collins, right? Jim Collins talks about the sweet spot. And really, the zone of genius always resonated more with me. It's a term I heard from Gay Hendricks in the book, The Big Leap. And the zone of genius is that place where you are living your highest purpose, where you feel like you're making your highest, best contribution in the world. And when I came across that book and I read that line, I was like, oh, this is why I'm feeling kind of antsy in what I'm doing in real estate, because I'm not feeling like I'm living my highest, best purpose and using all of my gifts. Like, when you're in your zone of genius. I mean, Wes, you and I are so lucky that we found this place where we know, like, we're in our genius, right? Like, wake up every day super excited about the work we get to do in the world, about the people we get to interact with, and the people we get to meet. And that's when we know you're in your zone, when what you're doing energizes you.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one of the best ways to find it. Like, what do I love doing? And like, I only like to say I'm a bit of a midwife of the zone of genius, right? Like, helping people birth their why and really get it into language, because I love words, right? And when we ask somebody, like, how do you figure out what your zone of genius is? And I want to tell everybody who's listening or watching, when I first heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have a zone of genius. I'm not special. I'm not anything, genius. So it actually took me a couple of weeks of sitting with that question and feeling like, oh, I'm not genius. I'm not special. Then I realized, oh, my gift is in teaching. My gift is in teaching and helping others to see their possibility. I was like, oh, and there's my genius. And if for some people it might be, I don't know, some people whose their genius is connecting people and creating events. And, I had a client I was speaking with yesterday. That's her thing. She just absolutely loves connecting people and creating events where meaningful connections happen. So that's one. For other people, their genius might be painting or uh, computer programming, like whatever it is that lights you up, right? For some
Absolutely.
people, they love filling out the forms that I hated filling out, right? So, it's like we all have this different zones of genius. And when each of us is stepping into it, I believe the world could be a better place, right? We inspire, because like you and I stepped into ours so we can inspire other people. And we have an ulterior motive, is to get them in their zone of genius so that they're inspiring other people, and we have this ripple effect out into the world.
I like how you said that, the ripple effect. Like
Mm.
that is so powerful. I mean, my tagline is wanting to create world abundance through business success, and creating that trickle down effect, same thing.
Mhm.
And so that's, to me, I think that's super powerful. So there's another thing you mentioned there in your introduction of how you got into coaching, is the reluctant coach. And I
Mhm.
want you to kind of maybe just go back and explain why you felt reluctant about getting there. When did you realize that you were supposed, this is your genius?
Yeah, it's my calling, it's my purpose, right? Okay, so this is terrible, but when I first came out and I got into the networking world, and I started meeting people who were calling themselves life coaches, and I was like, life coach, what is that? Can't people just take care of their own lives and just get stuff done? And so yeah, there was a lot of judgment for me, and I was meeting people who were giving me the impression like, wow, you don't really seem like you have your life together. Why would I go to you to get my life together? Again, that was judgment, because I've since learned there's a lot of people who are really powerful coaches who just don't have business sense. And so unfortunately, the fact that they're powerful coaches doesn't translate when they show up at a networking event. And so, they may have that discomfort, but this doesn't mean they're not amazing coaches, as I have learned through my training. And I now work with some of those coaches to help them to connect better so they can actually bring their gifts to the world as well. But yeah, so I had that attitude of like, coaching, what is that? And then also, I had this belief too that nobody makes any money at coaching, right? I was like, I don't want to be broke, right? Who on earth would pay for that? And the funny thing is like, it's so funny how we can hold two conflicting beliefs. Because on the one hand, I'm paying out a considerable sum of money for my real estate coach, but I'm wondering who would possibly pay for this other kind of coaching,
Right.
right? And now I have paid significantly for that other kind of coaching, and it's changed my life and it's made me a better coach, right? So it's just when you have those limiting beliefs, sometimes that can even hold you back from stepping fully into your zone. And so that's how the work we do, right? Is to help people identify those self-sabotaging beliefs and do a reframe and a reprogram of our thinking so that we can step into our genius and step into making our highest best contribution and living our best life, really. I mean, it sounds so trite to say that, but really that's what being in your zone of genius is. Just live your best life.
Right. Right.
That's what you're here for.
Absolutely. And I like how you put that. You mentioned, self sabotage, and
Mm.
one of those things. And I know last week I did the self sabotage test, and I got the results back from it. It was eye opening for sure.
Mm.
But talk to me a little bit about, how do you help people overcome that self sabotage?
Yeah. So one of the things I've done is I've partnered with Positive Intelligence Organization, and I'm become a mental fitness coach. And this self sabotage assessment that Wes is talking about, we'll stick it in the link somewhere. We'll make it available to people so they can do it. And um, I've always been interested in how our brains work, and we've learned a lot in the last, say, 25 years. Neuroscience and cognitive behavior science, like all of these sciences that focus on the brain, have just made leaps and bounds with the knowledge we now have of the brain, and we still know hardly anything about it.
Oh, I know.
But
No.
it's been fascinating to me, and I remember early on in my teaching career, and it was very new information at the time. And this fellow had come around, was doing workshops and presentations to educators about brain-based learning. And I remember going, wow, that's really cool. And I thought, wow, I really like to do what he's doing. It's so funny because now I am doing what he's doing, um, right? But it just took me a while to get there.
Speak it into
But
existence.
right, but yeah, and I've been fascinated with how the brain works and how we can brain-based learning really literally is about looking at how you can train your brain to take on board new information and new habits. And so when I went to my coach training and I learned about the positive intelligence model and this operating system for understanding our brains, I got curious and I started looking at it and I was like, this is really interesting. And the saboteur assessment is designed to show you the ways that you tend to sabotage. So we've got there's 9 saboteurs in all, and then the universal saboteur, which is the judge. So we've heard of that, the inner critic, right? So, but I like in this model that they refer to the judge because our inner critic isn't just criticizing ourselves. It's judging ourselves, it's judging other people, it's judging our circumstances. And when we're in that judgment mode, like I was about coaching and what it meant to be a coach. And I mean, and it's no wonder, like my husband and daughter thought I was having a nervous breakdown when I said I wanted to go be a coach. They thought they were going to have to stage an intervention. They thought, so I'm exaggerating a little bit, just a little bit, but they were worried, right? Because it's kind of foreign to them as well, right? So they were worried that I was losing my mind. But the judgment that I had, the judgment that they had, some of it's coming from like, there's a difference between judgment and discernment. Discernment is like, if I was really putting myself in danger, I'm really glad I have family members who care enough to think, do we have to intervene here? But that's discernment. And then they backed off. Judgment is like when you're just making something wrong. And I was just making like assumptions about what it was to be a coach. That's judgment. And in fact, that caused me to miss out on some opportunities, right? Because I was judging it as like not important, not useful. So that was one of the ways that I self-sabotage with it. Now we all have different unique styles of self-sabotage. So, there are the 9 saboteurs. Like my top 3, let's compare our top 3. I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours.
Okay, I'm gonna go find my report now.
Okay.
See if I can bring it up. It's it was emailed to me last week. See if I can find it.
Because while you find that, I'll keep the show going.
Okay.
So my top 3 saboteurs: stickler, hyperachiever, and restless. So, and there are 6 more. We've got avoider, hyper rational. I don't have it in front of me, so I always forget which ones I've already said. Hyper rational, hyper achiever, pleaser, avoider, controller, to name a few. Right?
I can read them for you. I've got it right here.
Awesome. So just tell me your top 3, because the top 3 tend to be the ones that are like most dominant.
All right, cool. So controller,
yeah.
Hyperachiever, hyper rational.
Okay, awesome. So we can speak to some of those. So just to be clear for everybody who hasn't done the assessment yet, like when you go do it, we all have all of these saboteurs, right? They come up in different ways. And their original function for these things that we now call saboteurs were actually survival functions. So at some point, if you're a hyperachiever, like you and I both have that one, at some point we took on the belief that in order for us to be safe in the world, we had to achieve. And we had to achieve more and more and more. So achieving is good. When we're coming at achieving from a place of what we call in the positive intelligence model, sage or wisdom, or just a sense of calm, and you're grounded and centered and aligned. If you're coming at achieving from there, it's fine, no problem. But when you're coming from it as hyperachieving, it means that you're coming at achieving as a way of getting away from failure rather than going towards success. It's about running away from failure. And hyperachievers, we tend to do that. It's like, oh, I just got to get one more certification and one more award and one more zero on my bank account, right? There's always got to be more, and then I'll be good enough. So
Right.
we know when we're being driven by our saboteurs, because while our saboteurs can drive us, they will never make us happy. Whereas if I come at any of those goals I just named, another zero in your bank account, another award, another degree, from a place of like, this is fun, let's see what we can do here, and just wanting to come in, it's not self-sabotaging because it can make us happy to do those things, right? And so, yeah.
So
So
can
tell me
I?
what you learned when you saw that. Like, what came up for you?
Well, so I'm just in looking at my controller version, and I got like an 8.8 score on that. So um, it's almost straight to the very end because I assume it's out of 10.
Yeah.
So anxiety based and need to take charge and control. So I've been in the past. Now I'm much better at it now than I used to be, but I used to be one of those guys that could not stand that dead silence in a room. Right, if there was a conversation, right, and this is the worst thing to do for sales. The first one to speak is the first one who pays, usually in a sales conversation. And
Mhm.
so if there's dead silence there, I would be the first one to speak because I couldn't stand not having that movement going forward, right?
Mhm.
So, characteristics, strong energy and a need to take control and take charge. I mean, that's been my go-to role model as long as I can remember. I mean, even when I was little kids with my brother, I was the guy that was in charge, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Because at some point when you were younger, you took on this idea that that was the way to keep the world safe. Because
I,
no matter
I
what
think
kind of upbringing you've had, like you could have had the most perfect parents who never made a single mistake, which is not true. We all screw up our kids, right? But you could have this most perfect upbringing, and still at some point as a child, you're going to realize, oh, my parents don't have it all figured out, and this world maybe isn't as safe as I thought it was. And so that's terrifying, that thought for a young child. So if we turn it on ourselves and go, there must be something wrong with me. And that's why I feel unsafe. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to create safety. And for you, however it happened, it was like controlling things isn't going to make me feel safe. Did that
interesting.
land with you?
It does. Like when you're talking about that, it brings me to a time in my life when my 6, 7 years old, maybe 8 years old. We lived in Calgary where my brother and I were down at the outdoor skating rink in the park just on the same block as our house. And it was time to go home. It was wintertime, lots of snow. I ended up carrying everything back, and my brother took off running to go back home, and he wouldn't help me carry all the stuff back. And I vividly remember this to this day. It was a turning point when it made me realize that I didn't need help. I could do stuff on my own because I hauled everything back to the house on my own. I got to the gate where the gate was, and I could see the house, and I realized that I did it all on my own. And it was like, okay. And it changed. I think at that point, everything changed in the relationship between me and my brother. And it was never the same after that. And I realized that I didn't need him to help. I could do it on my own.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it was this me taking charge and being in control, I think, is when that happened.
Well, it's so interesting you remember that, because most people don't remember that moment that it happened. And I think because you remember it, and it changed things. Yeah, I can control things, I can do things, I'm capable. And that's a different thing. I'm capable, I can manage, I'm safe, as opposed to, no, I'm going to control everything so that I can feel safe. Because I think what we've talked about before, and I think is not a surprise to anybody who's got the controller, because I have a little bit of controller too. It's like down there, the fourth one. But we have them all, right? And so, but the thing is, it prevents us from asking for help
Oh, yeah.
when help
Huge.
could be of great service. Now, you don't need it. You can do it by yourself. And you can get further and faster with support. And I think this is one of the things we're always coming up against with coaching clients, right? Or potential coaching clients, people who are like, like how we used to be like, oh, I can do it all by myself. I don't need help. Right.
Yes.
And helping people to understand, wow, you can get where you want to go faster if
Oh,
you have somebody walking with you. Right.
that is so true. I mean, I remember all my life, get out of my way, let me do it. People that come up and want to help. No, I'm good. Get out of my way. And it's so true. It wasn't until I started into my alcoholic recovery process where I started being more willing to accept help, and then realizing that it was okay to ask for help, and then in that space also realizing that it was okay to be vulnerable. And that was something that I'd never ever allowed myself to do since that moment with my brother. You know, I was mad. I cried all the way home. I was
Mhm.
furious. And when I got to the gate, it was like something changed. And I don't know what it was, but I knew I could do stuff on my own. I didn't need any help. And that that did not serve me. I mean, it did serve me to a point, but not well as an alcoholic, because it was anger and get out of my way kind of thing. Let me do it.
Right.
Now I'm in recovery. Reaching out for help has been one of the biggest things I've been able to do. And I mean, that's why I want to create this podcast as well, is so that, business owners get to realize that we're not in that ocean all by ourselves anymore. Like, how many business owners feel isolated, thinking that, they're trying to grow their business, they're frustrated, they don't know what to do, and they have nowhere to turn, they nowhere to talk to.
Yeah.
Who do they
And that
talk
they
to
should
about
know
what to do?
already. Yeah.
Yeah. Who do I talk to about what to do? Who do I talk to about how do I make this decision?
Yeah.
Right. And so building a community around that is kind of one of my goals, so that
Mhm.
business owners can actually have that conversation and go, what do I do? How do I do
And and that's what you were saying too is about like learning that vulnerability is okay, and learning to in recovery, one of the things you learn is about self-empathy and self-care, right? And self-empathy is actually one of the most powerful antidotes for self-sabotage, is strengthening those what we call sage perspective, your right brain. So your left brain, so I'm going to give a real quick neuroscience lesson if that's okay.
that? Absolutely. I'm all
Okay.
for it. I've been
So
reading Joe Dispenza's books for a while now. So
amazing. So in our left brain, we literally have two brains, right? They're completely separate organs. And your left brain is the center of reason and logic and language and all those numeracy and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's that, along with the amygdala, which is our prehistoric brain in the back, those are, we can say, this is the survival region of our brain,
yeah.
right? It's like it's concerned primarily with survival. Whereas the right brain and the prefrontal cortex are concerned with creativity and emotion and passion and laser focused action and innovation and all those lovely things that creation and imagination come from. Okay. And so our brains are actually wired for threat, right? So from a prehistoric point of view, it was way more useful for us to scan the horizon and see all the negative threat than it was to see all the beautiful things. So, and some research shows that there's a 3-to-1 ratio. So for every gorgeous little butterfly you see, you're going to notice 3 saber-toothed tigers who want to have you for lunch.
I like
The
it.
problem is that we no longer live in an environment where we are at risk of physical danger on an ongoing basis, right? We rarely feel that, where we're at risk of physical danger. And
Well,
yet our brains,
our
they
mind
don't know.
will create that fear.
Yeah, our brain's like, oh my gosh, oh, you're doing something new? You're stepping out of the normal habit? What we're doing has kept us alive. So if you do something different, we might die. Right? Like I'm exaggerating, but that's kind of what's happening when you're like, I want to get fit and I want to go to the gym. And then you find yourself on the sofa watching TV instead of going to the gym, or you feel this resistance to going because your brain is trying to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Right? It's a threat, it's change. And if what's working works, even if it's not making you happy, your brain says, this is working because we're not dead yet.
So how do we overcome that? Like, that's
Right.
a powerful block to
Yeah.
a lot of business owners from doing what they
Yeah.
need to do to grow. Like, that is
Well,
huge.
the wonderful, wonderful thing about our brains is that they're plastic.
Yeah.
There's neuroplasticity. We can change them. It takes some time to change it because, you know, every time we have a new thought, so when we have a coaching experience with a client or you've been in coaching and somebody said something, you're like, oh, the light bulb just came on. I mean, literally it's happening. There's actually little sparks in your brain where this new neural pathway is being created. And what happens is that you've got the old pathway is deep. You know, I was in the Sunshine Coast recently here in BC, and where the tide was coming up, and for probably thousands and thousands, maybe millions of years, brushing against this rock face, and it had shaped the rock, you know. And that's kind of what's happening in our brain, like this thoughts of going this over and over and over again, the same thought: I can't do that, I'm not good enough, I need to be in control or else, right? It's danger, danger, danger. The same thought is this deep, deep groove. And then you come along and you have a new idea going, wow, fitness is good for me, or wow, doing this thing for my business is probably going to help me. But it's a new pathway. And it's like this rock that's been grooved and grooved and grooved by the ocean is the old path. And you know when you see those rocks with like moss on them?
Yeah.
You see a new path, it's like you've kind of scratched the moss off a little bit. And you've got to take action to keep digging that new pathway. Now, it sounds like it's a lot of effort, and it is some effort, but it's not that difficult. You know, a lot of the work that we do in coaching helps make those little grooves a little deeper. And the program that I train with is the mental fitness program, where we actually spend time weakening the saboteur thoughts, which is those thoughts that make the deep groove, so we can strengthen the positive intelligence and get your right brain activated more. And there's lots of things that you can do. Fitness is one of them, right? You know that people who are engaged in regular physical fitness suffer significantly less from depression and analysis paralysis and all the other things that where the saboteurs come in, right? So avoiding, pleasing, hyper rational behavior, like, you know, all of those things are less likely to be stressors. And we know when we're in negative emotion because we know it, we feel it, right? They're that fear, that anxiety that we're going to die and or something bad. We don't say we're going to die, but you know, our brain's thinking that. And that's where the feeling comes from. And we can get out of that by doing things where we connect our mind and body, where we're tapping into our right brain. Because right now, our left brain, it's almost like if you went to the gym and you only lifted weights with your left arm.
Right.
Right? And then your right arm's kind of hanging there. And that's for a lot of us in our modern society, our left brain is overworked because we are hyper vigilant. We are and that's one of the saboteurs, by the way, hyper vigilant, right? We're hyper vigilant for danger because there's all this threat around us of failure and, you know, social ostracization, like lots of things that feel threatening. And so, you know, and we live in a culture too that kind of like, oh, you need more time, rush, 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 everything has to be done really fast, right? And it all causes this pressure that has us in this survival mode non-stop. So of course that muscle is getting stronger. Mm-hmm. The thing is, we want to move out of that and take it as, you know, you're never going to get away from that because it's a good thing, right? To be like, oh, danger, alert. But we want to move ourselves out of that so that we can move forward from our positive space and take it as, that's just information. Wow, I'm scared here. What is this about? Is this really something to be scared of? Or is this just my brain reacting to the fact I'm about to do something different? And for entrepreneurs,
take that moment of choice and ask yourself those questions instead of just instant reaction, right?
And there's things that you can, as I said, physical things you can do, connecting the mind and the body. It's so important. Like we've, you know, the age of enlightenment, around 1700s, and there was this whole thing like science became the new religion for the world, and we've all kind of bought into like, oh, it's science, so it must be true, right? And true scientists are the most skeptical people you'll ever meet because they're always looking for things to prove them wrong, right? They're not married to their beliefs, and so, but we had this pseudoscience. We're like, oh, it's science, therefore it must be true. We moved into, you know, absolutes. Anyways, that's my soapbox. I'll get off of it. But but what we've seen is this, because of that, there was this real emphasis on rational over emotional and physical. So there's been this real mistrust of our body. So we try to push down those feelings rather than look at them and go, what is this telling me? How can I get out of this? How can I pass through this feeling rather than pushing it down? Because if you push it down, you're going to end up doing things like you've shared that you experience, right? Like alcoholism is just a form of like trying to escape the feelings, right? And numbing, any kind of addiction or numbing with alcoholism, sex, Netflix, over shopping, whatever it is like to get away from those scary feelings. But getting us back into our bodies is really the answer. So physical fitness, and there's a ton of different mindfulness and psychosensory techniques that you can use.
So I've never heard the term psychosensory, so that's new.
Mm-hmm.
So I do meditation in the morning. I use a guided meditation in the morning for about 20 minutes. And then I do affirmations, and then I get
Awesome.
into my day. Typically I'll do the affirmations after I do my morning workout, right? And then get into that meditation, the affirmations, and then I kick off my day. So, let's talk a little bit about the psychosensory, because that's new.
Mm-hmm. So you're doing some of the good stuff.
I can do to improve my brain health is big. I mean, I've been reading Joe Dispenza books for probably 3 years. I think I read the first one. I've read any book I can pick up on how the brain works. And Joe Dispenza, I think, laid it out in a really good way for me that made me connect all the dots to how my brain works. And I love your analogy with the water on the rocks. My analogy is a super highway, because my addiction was a super 4-lane. It was like the 401 going to the bottle, right? And I'm creating these new pathways that go off into the trees. There's a little trail in the grass. So and what I liked about what Joe talks about is our brain can repurpose that old neural pathway, which is really cool. And so so share about how we can do that using
psychosensory techniques. So, and all the things you're doing are great, like meditation and but what helps, like the word mindfulness is kind of overused and misused, and we kind of lose the sense of what it really is. But mindfulness is really about bringing us into an awareness of our present moment and of our body. So we call it mindfulness, but it's really about connecting with your right brain, which is it's non-linguistic, non-linear. So we're strengthening that so that we can recover more quickly when we do get hijacked by our saboteurs that are causing us fear, right? In their effort to try to protect us. It's a part of us. We want to honor that is a part of us trying to protect us, but they've overextended their muscles. So psychosensory techniques can be anything, the physical. So breathing. When you start your meditation, do you start with a few deep breaths?
Absolutely do. And then
you're already doing them then.
Throughout it, I do a breathing exercise, right?
So you're concentrating on your breath when you're doing that, right? Like, so partly your meditation, I usually start my meditation with some deep breaths, so really just focusing on my breath. And then I shift my focus into my mantra that's part of my meditation. But that time when you're breathing, if your attention is fully on your breath, that's a psychosensory technique.
Oh, cool.
Because your brain is completely focused on this physical of your breath. You can focus on the feeling of the air coming in and going out, the temperature of the air going in your nostrils and coming out of your nostrils. It's a different temperature. Mm-hmm. Most of us breathe all day long, not noticing that. So those things, we bring ourselves back for 10 seconds to just notice the sound of your breath. You can do so much with just the breath, right? Just like breathing in, listening to it, feeling it, noticing the temperature, noticing the sound. That alone is exercising our right brain. Now, it's not enough, because we got to do a lot of that. We want to do a lot of that and have that awareness throughout the day. And if you were just to do, there is a whole bunch of different practitioners who do different aspects of this. In the practice that I do with the positive intelligence, where the goal is to raise your PQ, your positive intelligence quotient.
Yeah.
So we call them PQ reps. And the system we use is to have them several times throughout the day where you're stopping for just a couple of minutes to do some breathing, to do any of those things. Like sometimes it's just as simple as this, putting all of your attention, try that right now. Put all of your attention in the tips of your finger and thumb. I can actually hear mine rubbing together right now. Sometimes depending on the,
My hearing's not that good.
yeah, well, I guess it depends on like how moisturized my hands are or not. But if you really focus on it, you can go a little softer and feel the ridges of your fingertips and just concentrate on feeling your fingerprints against each other. Tell me when you found it.
Oh yeah, I can feel that for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so if I was to stick your head in an MRI machine right now, it'd be lighting up just because you're focusing on the physical,
Absolutely.
right? So this is why people who do fitness regularly tend to have less depression and less anxiety, right? And yet it's not enough, right? Like for someone like me, like I was way off the charts, like hyperachiever,
Excuse me. Sorry.
right? Like my hyperachiever was 10 out of 10. And when I first did that assessment, I was like, yes, I got 10 out of 10. And I was like, then I read it, I was like, probably not a good thing, right? And I've always been really driven to
Good.
I've been really driven to perform and achieve and I'll be good enough when, right? And so I was always in a hurry to do more. And that was for me that real shifting of how I started doing this work of being in mindfulness. And I mean, it sounds simple, but like the breathing, doing breath work several times a day. There are a few other things. There are like whole schools of thought and systems around breath work. There's also, have you heard of EFT, emotional freedom technique, which is the tapping? Oh, yeah. Tapping is another way to access this. It does the same thing. Like we have some exercises in the PQ model, the positive intelligence where that we use, and we have a complete training system. I actually take people through an 8-week intensive training to make this the habit of their thinking. And it's amazing. It's almost magical what I see happening for people. Like I had one woman, I'm 2 weeks into one of my programs right now, and her second week, she's like, I can't believe it. I just went through this really difficult seasonal thing in her work. She said, normally I would have been so stressed out and so anxious. She's like, I was so calm. I was so like just above it. I was like, and that's 2 weeks in to doing these exercises and doing the work. So there's this whole it's a fitness program. It's a mental fitness program. And so, and the goal of the program is to train people so that, and it's app supported. There's app supported, and then there's coaching from me throughout it. And then at the end of it, you're able to it's become habit, right? You've got enough time doing it that it's become a habit. You just do it all the time. I have some people who did it like a year ago who are telling me that, yeah, I do it all the time still. It became habit. And you find different ways of just being aware of your senses. So anything in your routine in the morning, when you're doing your breath work for your part of your meditation, when you're exercising, you can up level your exercise by taking at least the first couple of minutes of your exercise to focus on scanning what's going on in your body. Mm-hmm. Because so many people go, oh, I want to go to the gym, I just want to watch TV or listen to music and just like forget about what's happening in my body. You can actually increase your mental fitness by taking the first 2 minutes of any workout to just focus what's going on in your body. So if you're on the treadmill, feel your feet, hit the treadmill, feel your hands on the bar, notice the vibration in your knees, scan up through your hips. How does it feel when your arms are swinging as you walk or run? And just notice that, and really all of your attention in your muscles.
That's really
exercising your brain.
Absolutely, it's really powerful because I've been I'm not a bodybuilder, but I've been into lifting weights for the last 10 years for sure, at least maybe 20 now. I don't remember. But my wife is a personal trainer and a bodybuilding competitor, right? And so the mind muscle connection is huge. And I remember watching um, Arnold Schwarzenegger video one time, and he was talking about when he does a bicep curl that he gets to the top and he squeezes it so he can feel that muscle grow, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about. There's that connection with our minds. And a lot of people say, well, that's just woo woo stuff, right? But it's not. I don't think it.
Well, the thing is we have the science is now supporting what the woo-woo stuff has been intuitively telling us for centuries, right? A lot of this, I do yoga daily. And I'm going to little plug for yoga with Adrienne because I've been doing a practice with her for almost 5 years now. And just, she's amazing. And, in yoga, the mindfulness stuff is built in,
Yeah.
right? Stop and breathe. Okay, bring your center, come to your center. Like just the things that are built into the instructions are intended to bring your focus into your body. And yoga is an ancient practice. And so, when we listen to our intuition, we actually know a lot of this stuff already. And as I said, the problem is that when Age of Enlightenment, 17th century, and science got prioritized over emotion and intuition, we started ignoring our intuition and ignoring what our bodies were telling us. And so we see that in the medical profession, right? Like where some people will say, well, my body says this, and the doctor's like, nope, that can't be. And they'll listen to the doctor instead of listening to their own body. Now, there's some great doctors out there, but there's also some doctors who are just like, nope, this can't be this, and they will not, and they encourage people not to listen to their bodies.
Yeah.
Right. And we're shifting. We're definitely in our lifetimes, we've seen that shift. But I've watched how my parents and my grandparents kind of just deferred everything to the doctors, to the medical profession, which again is shifting to understand that our bodies have a lot of information for us. And so does our right brain if we would just use it. And this is the work of mental fitness to strengthen our right brain so we can use it. Right? If we don't do fitness, if we're not doing physical fitness, we can't climb a tall flight of stairs without getting out of breath. We can't climb a steep hill without getting out of breath. The same is true with our mental fitness. If we're not doing things for our mental fitness, we're not going to be able to handle those steep cliffs and those steep stairs of business building and entrepreneurship, or just of life, right? Because life happens. I mean, when you look around when this pandemic hit, who are the people in your lives, think about it, that were the most calm about what was going on? It was probably the people who were practicing mindfulness, meditation, even just fitness, right?
Yeah, my wife was pretty calm about it all, and she's in the gym every day. Like that's her stress reliever, right? So let me ask you this. We talked about the mind body connection, mental health. How does nutrition play into all of this?
I'm not a certified nutritionist, but I have opinions on nutrition. I think nutrition is a big part of it. It's like how we treat our body, right? Like what you put into your body says something about how you feel about yourself, right? And so I think the more dialed in you are to your body by doing this mental fitness work, the more you're aware you can also be of how things affect you, right? Like I don't drink, not because I don't like it. I'm actually very happy that I've recently found a non-alcoholic beer and it's delicious. And it's hard to find. But I'm intolerant. I don't tolerate alcohol. My body just is like, no, thank you. And
I wish I had that problem.
yeah, but it's how it makes you feel, right? It's like, so it's alcohol or food. It's the same with sugar for me. So I think the more tuned in you are to your overall health and well-being, the more you're going to be sensitive to when you put crap in your body, how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that answers your question. I think that nutrition is a huge part of it.
Well, I think you're right, and you're absolutely true. It does. We need to make sure we eat healthy, and that health doesn't necessarily mean following the USDA guidelines, because there's some stuff that I've watched that will argue that point completely, and I've seen it in my own body that
Mhm.
stay away from carbs. Like me and carbs just don't go well together.
You know, when you mentioned that, something came to mind because I don't do this work personally, because I work with people in business and leadership. That's my main focus, is helping them kind of get over their pleaser or their avoider so they can become better leaders. Um, but some of the people who do the mental fitness program actually focus on weight loss and use the PQ reps and the psychosensory technique
Mhm.
to help people build their mental fitness while and as a result they're losing weight because they use it around food. So there's this real focus on, and other people have done this before. Now we've proven it with science that it actually works. There's a brain body connection happening.
Yeah.
um, but for a long time, if you go back and there's lots of literature from even 100 years ago that says chew your food slowly, pay attention to it, savor it, and you will not you'll know when you're full and you won't overeat. And here's the thing: when we look at, there was an obesity epidemic in North America, and largely because we were ignoring our bodies. When we
Yeah.
listen to our bodies say, I'm full, I'm good. But we ignore it because we're in fight or flight. So we're like, get some more stores on board in case we're going to starve to death. Right. And there's all those things that are going on. So yeah, bring us back to our body. And I think we solve a lot of things, but we're, rather than going to the root cause, which is the mental fitness, we're offering diets, we're offering antidepressants, we're, all kinds of, like, buy this next product or buy this fancy car and that's going to make you happy. Right. And I'm not saying those things aren't fine. They're fine. I have no problem with buying a new car or anything. But if we don't start with the root cause of what is making us unhappy and what's stressing us out, we're just going to continue in that same cycle.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
that's what the book
I agree.
is.
I agree so much with that. And I think, one of the things you said that, we talk about um, our mental health and everything that we do. One of the things that I've seen, especially because the way society has gone, we've done this transition from being aware. You know, back in the caveman days, we hunted for food, and we were very social creatures. In this day and age today, when we don't have that fear, we're being driven by something, and we're so busy doing things that we get out of the mindfulness, we get out of the moment, and we're separating from everything that's important to us, right? We separated from our family, separated from our own person, and we're in this space of, for lack of a better word, chaos. And then we wonder why we're having, what's the word I'm looking for, anxiety attacks and stuff like that, right? Is because we're not taking that time to be in the moment, connect with our mind and our bodies, and then connect with those people that are around us, and to be whole, right? To really be whole.
Yeah. And yeah, we've talked about this before, right? The social connection. We talk about, what do you need to survive? We need food, water, shelter. And you said it before, it was a social connection.
Yeah.
And so much of our anxiety around just this kind of random nameless anxiety has to do with fitting in and being accepted. Right. And so, I posted something on my social media account the other day that got a lot of attention. Was, if we can learn to get past our own fears and other people's expectations, we can really live our lives. And that's what mental fitness does for us, because it allows us to step out of the fear of not being connected. Now, I'm not saying we need, we still need to connect. Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
But what's happening is, because we are kind of disconnected from people, we're also very afraid of anything that's possibly going to disconnect us more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if our families don't like that we're running a business, that's scary, right? Like, so how many people do you know who have, chosen not to do coaching because a partner or a parent was like,
Quite a few.
you don't need that. Right. Or there's people who, have chosen not to get help with their mental health because there's the stigma, and there's so many things that people are so afraid what other people are going to think, that they're afraid to ask for help. They're afraid to take an action that might go against the grain, because let's like, just how our brains are like trying to keep us alive, the hive mentality is too. Like, we're alive, we're safe. What do you mean you're going over that way? That's putting us all in danger, right? Which is not true, but you know,
Yeah.
it's so complex how we respond when somebody chooses to do something differently than we would.
Well, that's so true, and you hear about the naysayers. Everybody's got naysayers, and one of the rules that I gauge success with is, if you have more naysayers than everybody else, you're doing a lot better because you're going against you're going against everything. And the road less traveled is the road to success in a lot of books that I've read, right?
Which ties in perfectly because the road less traveled is that new neural pathway you're trying to shape, right?
Absolutely.
There's your new, yeah, there's your road less traveled. You got to travel it some more.
So I have another question here that I think is a little off topic, but maybe not, because we're talking about brain health and stuff like that. So how does your exercise and your programs and this mental agility, how does that lend to creating or helping us to create a vision for our future? Because I'm very big at envisioning what we do.
Yeah.
I'm a First you have to see it in mind. I think it was Napoleon Hill talked about, if you can conceive and you
Yeah.
can believe, you can achieve. First, it has to happen in our minds. And I mean, it was proven. They did some studies where some piano players came in and they hooked a brain machine up and they played piano and they fired all the signals, and they could tell what parts of the brain were firing. And then they had them come back in 2 weeks later and practice playing the piano in their mind. Didn't have the piano in front of them, just in their mind, and they had the brain scanners hooked up and everything, and it fired in the exact same
Mhm.
patterns. And
Yeah.
so we know that the brain can make, we know the brain doesn't know the difference between
Yeah.
imaginary and real. So
Exactly.
how can we use your techniques to help us create that envision of our future that most of us so desperately need, so
I
we can
love that
yeah.
question. I love that question, Wes, because the music is another way that you can build your mental fitness. Like, have your playing music and really listening to it and really paying attention to it. I don't know if you can hear this right now, but my husband's in the other room practicing his clarinet. And he's the most calm guy because he's always playing some music and always playing some kind of instrument. So that's his mental fitness there. And when I think of the piano players too, right? That is not left brain activity. Like, at some point you learn, okay, this is the key, this is center C, these are the black keys, the white keys, the sharps, whatever. But at some point, to be a good piano player where you can actually play it in your mind, the music, it has to move from the rational brain into the creative brain where you're just feeling it, you're in passion and intuition. And
Right.
so, to answer your question, how do we get vision with this technique? Is because it gets you out of survival. You cannot have a vision for the future if you're in survival mode, because survival mode is fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah, yeah.
Has anybody ever created anything wonderful out of those places? No.
I'm gonna
If
write
you're
this
in
down.
fear, you're not in creation. Sorry, what did I say?
Fight, flight, or freeze. You cannot have a vision. You cannot build a vision for the future if you're still in survival mode, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I wrote
Yeah.
down. That's powerful. I think that is a right there. I think is a cool breakthrough for business owners if they're listening to this, they're watching
Yes.
this. If you're stuck, you can't figure out how to get unstuck. You're in survival mode, and if you
Mhm.
can get yourself out of that survival mode and start to envision what your future could look like, or you want it to look like, and create that habit of doing that on a daily basis, you'll get out of that survival mode and you'll move into the creative mode, I think, of your brain, and get
Mhm.
into that space where all of a sudden things will start to come to you.
Mhm. Yeah, and you just got to strengthen that right brain muscle so you can get out of your survival brain, right? And you don't have to do it alone,
Yes, that's the most important part.
right? It's like, oh, you just have to get out of your survival brain. It's like, no, you don't have to do it alone. In fact, the reason why the coaching profession exists is because none of us can see the label from inside the bottle. We all have our blind spots. right? And
Definitely not.
I have a coach, Wes has a coach,
I,
right?
I have two actually.
Yeah, me too. And so we have coaches for that reason, because it just opens up so much possibility, right? And I don't mean to make it a coaching commercial, but it really is. This is part of what we do. It's like we want to help people. We say, like, we've got the water. If you're thirsty, come and drink it,
Yeah.
right? And so the mental fitness is if you wanted to wrap that up, I'm not sure if it sounds like we're coming to a conclusion here. I just want to, yeah, say that, like, there's the thing is that you're already probably doing a lot of the activities that will help build your right brain. It's not like, there's nobody walking around with completely like offline right brain, but there's lots you can do to take what you're already doing. If you love music, if you love running, if you love yoga or meditation, just bring yourself into mindfulness while you're doing that and be really, really present with yourself. It's a great way to get yourself out of those, what we call saboteur hijackings, where you're afraid, but there's really no good reason to be afraid.
So if you were to take a habit, maybe a thing you used to do in the past time when you were a kid, like coloring or drawing and stuff, and you actually to implement that back into your life in a
Mm-hmm.
moment of mindfulness, and that would help engage the right side of your brain and get that creative
Absolutely.
juices flowing, get you away from the survival mode.
Mm-hmm. This is why adult coloring books have kind of hit the scene, and they're like this big thing, because people are craving this. They're craving spending more time in creativity because it's really missing from our modern world in a lot of ways, right? We grow up, we're not supposed to have fun anymore. So,
That-
and I want to say, for those people who are like, coloring is not your thing, you can do this while you're brushing your teeth. Take the time that you're 2 minutes that you're brushing your teeth to really feel the bristles, to really hear the sounds and feel the bubbles of the toothpaste, and be really present, and just don't think about anything else other than that toothbrush in your mouth against your teeth and what it feels like, the tingling of the toothpaste, whatever those the sensations are, the taste of it, right? Because with that alone, you've got taste and sound and touch. You're hitting 3 of your senses just with brushing your teeth.
Nice, nice.
Right? So anytime you're looking at your, doing anything that's focusing on your senses, as I said, it doesn't have to be coloring, but it can be awesome. Do that for sure. And make it a part of your day. And if you want to make it into a habit, then it's a good idea to look into the mental fitness program and engage in that, because I am just amazed by the difference it's made in my life and also in the lives of the clients that I take through the program. It's extraordinary. So maybe Wes will do it with me next time around.
Absolutely. I'm certainly looking forward to it. So if somebody wants to take advantage of that program, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So let's can we put a link below with the
Yeah.
link? But my website is deborahstellingwerff.com. And you can head on over to the coaching page, and then there's the mental fitness drop down. But we'll give the link because it's a little bit of a route to get there. So I'll give you a link. You can just give them directly in the comments below, and they can just click right on that and have a look, and we can have a conversation and see if that's a fit for them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deborah. Today it was amazing getting to walk through how your brain works and how mental health and mental fitness can really change an entrepreneur's outlook on life. I can't, I'm looking forward to jumping in with you. We did get a little bit of chance to walk through my saboteur, but I'd like to meet with you again later and dig into that one a little bit deeper and talk about that.
Yeah.
There's some stuff there that I would have liked to have unpacked on today's show. We just,
Oh, well, let's do episode 2. Episode 2 of this show will be unpacking Wes's brain.
Yeah, sure. Well, why don't we do that? It's an alcoholic brain full of addiction and recovery. And so, yeah, let's unpack my brain and see what it looks like. I'm looking forward to that. Well, again, thanks very much, Deborah. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us. And I'm excited that you want to come back. And that's really powerful. I look forward to working with you in the future. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Wes. Keep breathing, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye.